Hi, I'm Eric Housley with Lessons in Loss, Love, and Resilience. I'm excited to be here today with a good friend who has a story that we both are very aware of. Jason Dominici. Jason is here to join me. Most people know the story of me losing Elena in a mass shooting. What a lot of people don't know is, your side of the story. And I just, two dads wanted to talk about that. And Jason, you lost your daughter Addie in a tragic accident about
Right.
9 or 10 months after Elena's.
Yeah.
And so just thought it'd be good to, catch up and talk about two dads and the grief journey and how it
Right.
goes. How's that
Well,
sound?
sounds good. Thanks for having me here,
Yeah,
Eric.
absolutely.
Appreciate it.
So to give people a little bit of a background, Elena's murder happened November 7th. Your wife ran, and she's been on my podcast too, Megan. She ran Elena's memorial service for us
Right.
and the funeral and everything. And then fast forward 8 months, and we have a special event from Splashes of Hope, a big kind of mural that we had a chance to paint, which is kind of a
Yeah.
very cathartic event for families dealing with loss.
Yeah.
And you guys were there, and I remember just looking over and seeing how Addie was just into it.
Yeah,
She was
had
just,
both my girls and
Yeah.
and a friend was there, and yeah, they were painting away.
Yeah, they were.
But that was a mere week before
Before
tragedy
that.
struck our
Yeah.
family.
And what happened in your story for the listeners?
Well, the story is that following week, my mother-in-law was turning 70, and we had set up a surprise birthday party out kind of on the Napa River. Great location. There were some reasons for doing it out there. And when we were out setting up, it was all family, for the most part, maybe a friend or two, but it was mostly family out there, kind of getting stuff prepared and ready and set up, and rental chairs and tables had come, but we were all kind of pitching in different ways. And my wife and I, because we're always like, okay, what can we do? Somebody said we need to get flowers, and we need something for this. Oh, we need to pick up balloons. So where this location was literally 2 miles from where that had to happen. So we said, okay, we'll jump in. We were in separate vehicles, kind of make it happen, and we said we'll jump in and go grab that. Now, in the meantime, I had sister-in-laws there, my other kids were there, cousins of my kids, my nieces and nephews were there, and of course, my youngest, Addie, who we're talking about, was there. But everybody's helping and everybody's watching each other, so we didn't think anything of it. So, we ran down to places. She went to one place, I went to the other. They're close by. And in the time, and I still remember it, I was checking out, and I get a call, a frantic call from my sister-in-law saying, there's been a bad accident, and I'm in line literally. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? And, first things that kind of go through my mind are, okay, somebody fell, they're hurt, they're scraped. And, my sister-in-law yelled, no, we're going to the hospital. Addie's been very hurt. And, I'm still thinking at that moment,
Broken arm.
broken arm, was pretty hurt. And so I paid, got in the car, and started heading towards the hospital. The crazy part is, a little surreal. The ambulance kind of went a different route and kind of passed me on the way there. And then, came in, and Megan kind of got in too about the same time. She's in a different vehicle. And, it's one of those surreal moments that you kind of walk into the emergency room and you see your youngest daughter,
Yeah.
kind of not in good shape, and you're just trying to process, right? What has happened? What went on? And, not really having the answers at that moment.
Yeah. I still talk about it this day. For me, and maybe you as a father to explain it, is I feel very fortunate in some ways that, because of Elena's murder, we went down, like we weren't able to see her. We chose not to
Right.
to identify her body because of, the shooting and not knowing what that was. And I didn't want to wake up with that. So you were able to go into the room.
Yeah,
with Addie.
we were right in the
Yeah.
emergency room as doctors are working on her, and kind of learning, what's going on. And so, it was very
Surreal.
Surreal to see, you just 20 minutes before that, maybe a half hour, little girl was, you're hanging out with, and to see that, it's very surreal.
Yeah.
In that fact.
I know. And, when you're describing the family, we were talking about it before we got on air. It's, similar to myself. It was my brother and I. My mom wasn't super close to her side of the family. My dad was an only child.
Yeah.
And I marry Hannah, who's a Filipina. And all of a sudden, like, there's people everywhere. I feel like that movie Fools Rush In, right?
Yeah.
Where there was Catholics everywhere. And in my closet, I came on my wedding day, but like, I was like, where are they coming from?
Right.
There was one van and 48 people in my house. And I know with the Savage family, Megan's side of the family, they're a gigantic family and all super loving and giving and all in. So those big parties were common, that everybody's just pitching in.
Right.
And so it was just a fluke scenario.
Yeah.
So.
And, it's, I know we've talked about before that, you didn't want to know exactly what happened and when. I think mine, for me, not knowing exactly, especially when you had been at the location where the accident happened, 20 minutes before, there was a little bit inherent for me to go like, wait, what did I miss? What happened? And so for me in processing, and Megan was very different, probably much like you. She knew, but she didn't want to know.
Yeah.
Exactly the details. Were me, and maybe it's just my personality, I was kind of, as a dad, kind of like, that momentary, my, nieces, nephews, my, sister-in-laws, and, my own kids, I harbor nothing that they should feel like, but I also want to know, like, what happened? So, it was hard for me at first, and, as things kind of come out, and obviously when as the police come and talk to you, and they give you a report, and you get all the other things, and, as a dad, you kind of go, you always want to protect your kids, right? Mm-hmm. And so it was hard for me to be like, shoot, why was I not there, right? I mean, we all know our kids are going to go off to school, and they're, Addie was in school, a first grader, and so you can't be there every moment with them,
right?
But you do have those feelings of like, oh,
yeah,
I was there. What, that piece. And so that, for me, I kind of wanted to gosh, how could that have happened? What, what didn't I see when we left, knowing kind of how it did happen?
Yeah. I mean, there were so many things that were said, and you probably have plenty of examples too, because I talk about it a lot in my speaking and my writing, that I tell people, like, there's no perfect way to do this. Right. Just like you said, you needed to know some details. I do know some details. I did find out some of the stuff. We chose not to go to the police briefing where they went through everything. And in our scenario, from what I understood, they were going to go through it in like, here's a map of the building. Here's dots to show each person that was there, that was deceased, where they were found. And then if you wanted the next stage, you'd go in and it was more detail. And if you wanted the next stage, you were going to go in and see video detail and all that stuff. And for me, I woke up with nightmares for 7 months, and it was always at 12:36 when we got the phone call. Like every night at 12:36, I would wake up like clockwork. But I still knew some and found out some data. And I mean, some of it I've just figured out on my own. It wasn't hard.
Right.
Hannah's really chosen to just not, none of that changes the outcome. So that was just her choice to do it. Not because she wasn't okay if I chose to do it. But could you see that? I mean, these type of accidents or incidents, however we want to describe it, frequently seem to me like they either push people together or they pull them apart. Like I see that with a lot of couples.
Yeah.
Do you think that, like, you guys allowing each other that space to kind of figure it out on your own was a way to do it, or what's been?
Yeah, I think for us, I mean, Megan and I often talk about that it brought us closer together, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of people rallied like you around us. It was our piece and our cross that nobody could understand to bear, right? And so, I mean, in some respects, Megan and I were closer than ever for that year after, right? Because, we were getting through it. We're making sure our other two kids were okay. The hardest part, you know, is that it was so many family that were involved in the accident. You kind of go, you're worried about them, right?
Right.
Because, you know,
Yeah.
my kids saw things that I would hope that, and I didn't see that. I had to see my nieces and nephews, my
Right.
sister-in-law saw things. So, you know, there was definitely a worry to make sure they were okay.
Yeah.
But I think we were closer than ever. I mean, have we since, you know, there's certainly been some therapy in there.
Yeah.
And ongoing therapy of things because I think Megan, my wife, and I process it differently at times, and we also kind of sense in the years kind of dealt with it differently. And you know, we've had to kind of, okay, what's important for us in our life? But we often say, gosh, you know, that first year we were the closest ever.
Yeah.
And, you know, you just kind of keep, you know, people be like, oh, your resilience seems so, I can't, like, you guys, you know,
Yeah.
give us it. And you're just, no, you're like, well, what do? You keep moving forward. Yes. But I also felt like, yeah, we were very fortunate, all the people around us.
Yeah.
To really kind of
Yeah.
be there and walk with us that,
Yeah.
you know, some people don't have that. And so I try to remember that always, that, you
Yeah.
know, that support.
It's funny because I remember so I was running Nap United at the time, and I got a call. The board got a message from one of the guys from the fire department and said, hey, just so you guys know, there's been an accident. It's a Nap United family. And, you know, obviously wasn't long after with Elena. And we had the same thing, like the just community support everywhere.
Yeah.
Like as you guys were a part of that. And I reached out and I said, hey, you know, I don't know if if I know the family, I'd be happy to, you know, if I can be of any support or whatever. And then when he told me Addie's name, I just was like, I mean, my stomach just dropped because I was like, she was at my house 6
Right.
days ago, you know, like she was
Right.
at my house 5 days ago. And so I just remember thinking that. And then of course, when I told Hannah, she got really upset for obvious reasons. And then it was one of those scenarios where we didn't want you guys to feel obligated to want us around. Like
Right.
we never want people to feel like, oh, well, that they're going to come over almost, you know what I mean? Like there's times where in public, I feel like I walk around and like I go home and it's nice to kind of go and not be noticed, if that makes sense.
Right.
Cause I still have, I mean, it's 7 years later and people still come up to me and give me an awkward hug or want to talk to me about it or whatever. And always in kindness, right?
Yeah.
They're always wanting
Yeah.
to say nice things. Sometimes it's just weird. You know,
Yeah.
like I got like the 20-second hug one time where I finally dropped my arms because I'm like, she's still hugging me. You know, there's
Yeah, we get the weird, you know, it's interesting. And I know with your new book, which congratulations on your
Thank
new
you.
book.
Thank you.
I know that was a piece for you.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's interesting. I said that first year and a half, like people all wanted to like say something or embrace us. And then we kind of, and it's probably kind of coming full circle again for you because of the book. But, you know, then it became that awkward period, as I said, like that you could tell people wanted to say something, but they also like, okay,
They didn't want to bring it up again.
didn't want to
or-
bring it up again. So you
or
could
say the
see
wrong
it like
thing,
almost
yeah.
in their nonverbal. You could see it in their face, but
Well, we were talking about.
they would almost kind of not want to say anything to you, but
Yeah.
it'd be awkward.
Well, it's also, I mean, I've said the wrong things in my life, especially prior to Elena too. But I was talking to somebody about it the other day. I go, you know, saying something like she's in a better place right now or she's with God to a family that has faith is like, thank you. Like
Right.
most of the time, that's
Right.
going to be the response. If that's not the family's reaction, then it might make you feel better that you made that comment.
Yeah,
But for them,
yeah.
maybe, you know, like it is, again, I'm convinced it's always in kindness that people want to say something. It's one of those, what do you say and when, right? And I think those were those moments of what, you know, now it's been a year and a half. Do I want to bring it back up? Or does that reopen wounds for them? No, we live with this every day for the rest of our life, right? I tell people all the time, I have always been annoyed by that there's no words, that I'm like, well, then don't say anything. Like
Yeah.
to me, I don't know why that one's just been kind of my pet peeve,
Yeah.
but it's like, but you know, people just putting their hand over their heart and just being like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, thank you. Like that's,
Yeah.
you know, and I try to suggest to people like learn to try to speak with empathy rather than sympathy. Like
Yeah.
when people would look at me and go like, how are you today? And they'd tilt their head. I'd be like, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, like what do you want me to say here?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I know. So those pity head tilts, I'm just like, just be honest with people. Just say, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
And, you know,
I mean, I remember, obviously we've talked and our other good friends, the Horns, and I haven't had a lot of tragedy in my life. I've had, people that passed away from old age and some things in there, but not a lot close tragedy. And it seems like in the last number of years, because when you know a lot of people, right, it's a mixed blessing. Like you and Hannah know a lot of folks, but I often say it's a blessing and it's also a curse, because when you know people, that means you're gonna be more involved in more people's lives, and you're it's gonna be good,
yeah.
but sometimes it's going to be bad. And
Yeah.
I still remember Nick and I went to the Notre Dame Stanford football game, and on the way home on I-80, the traffic was way backed up, and we had kind of stopped a little diversion on the way home from Stanford, and on the way back up 80, there was and they were making people divert. Often had no idea what it was, and the next morning we learned
It was the Horn family.
there was the Horn family, and Joe and Daryl was Nick's CYO coach, his
Yep.
little league coach.
Yeah.
Joe was on Nick's team, and that was one of those big first, like, whew,
Yeah.
Megan, my wife's brother, had died from a DUI accident. He made bad decisions, and here, that was close, like. So, there's those different pieces. But, for me, I remember not knowing exactly what to say.
Yeah.
Well, here I was close, and Daryl had such things that he would say that.
Oh my gosh, he was
that
hilarious.
I,
yeah.
at one point was writing them down because they were so great. But I even remember with you, we've known each other for now, going on since we both got married.
Engaged encounter.
Engagement encounter.
We were the two heathens.
I remember not knowing, I could still remember not really knowing what to say to you when I saw you. I mean, I would see you at, Lena stuff and reception stuff, and I didn't know what to say. It was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not one that I want to be like I have to be over the top, but I also don't want to be like I'm cold. But I remember it feeling very awkward, not knowing what to say. And so you learn, I feel like the one thing that people have always told, and I kind of like this, that randomly, for no reason, somebody will text me and go, "Hey, Jason, today I was thinking about Addie, and for this reason." And that has more effect than somebody just says, "I was thinking about your little girl."
Yeah.
And for no reason other than, that.
Yeah.
And so I've tried to kind of, at random times, I'll send people with some things. "Hey, I was just thinking about so-and-so today," or "I was thinking about you when you did this."
Yeah.
So I think that is a nice, easy way to kind of,
Yeah. It's
without being too, like, "How you doing?"
Yeah. Well, I spoke in July to this Compassionate Friends Network, and when I was there were people showing up with buttons saying, my son was Jesse, remember his name, like stuff. And I can, if that's how they're doing their journey, there's no judgment on my part. That's just not how I've done it, right? I don't need people they mispronounce Elena all the time based on the funky spelling that we always did, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't bother me because I don't look at it in that way. But I remember every time I would put on my camouflage windbreaker that I had, I'd send you a text and be like, "Hey, I'm wearing this one today for Addie," or the 956. What was
908.
908.
Yeah,
her
BMX racing number.
I've still got that. Is the softest sweatshirt, by the way, ever. Like it's like every once in a while on a day like today when it's cold, it's like, ooh, this is a great one to throw on. When I would get up and I was writing my book, frequently I would wake up at like 3 a.m. and I was in, like, I just started thinking about what I wanted to write, and I'd frequently throw that on and just wear it just because I was like, it was warm and cozy in the morning. And it was 3 and just trying to get
I have a college fraternity brother, and he was a roommate when I was in college, and he lives down in Irvine, and he wanted to know, like, can I get one of those sweatshirts?
Yeah.
And so and it'll kind of warm my heart every once in a while. Like he doesn't over Facebook post or Instagram, but every once in a while he'll like be a post up and he'll be wearing that, and
Yeah.
it just makes me smile.
Yeah.
It's those little things that people do for you.
Yeah.
Out at the BMX track,
Yeah.
BMX people like did their kind of podium back mural that it has a thing of Addy, and we still see kids when they're getting their medals, their trophies, and it just kind of makes me smile.
Yeah.
Those kind of things. So those nice things that people do. So, I mean, I feel fortunate
Yeah.
that there's so many people that have kind of surrounded us and shown the right thing to do and the right way to do it when you
In
people.
you completely agree, and I think somebody said it to me just the other day that in your grief it actually teaches you how much love there was, right? When you see how much in your grief, when you see how many people come out and showed that support for you guys and for Addie and your family, it's so resonating. And we had the same thing. I mean,
Right.
the procession coming back into town, stuff that was just mind blowing, seeing like a sea of people that have lined the streets and all to receive Elena coming back into town in that way. We were talking earlier, and I'd like to kind of jump into this a little
Yeah.
bit. We can go wherever, but we were talking about work in
Yeah.
the workplace.
Yeah.
And you were working for a big company at the time.
Yep.
What were the goods and bads, and how did that go? What suggestions would you have for people on how to communicate to a coworker that's
Yeah, yeah. Fortunately, again, I was working a manager that I had worked with years ago, and I've often had good managers I've worked with that are associates that, you work with them, but they're not just people you work with. You also care and want to know about their kids, and you want to know how they're doing personally. But up the chain sometimes in a big company that feels like it maybe gets lost. But like Addie's, I had just started a new job 4 months before that happened, and yeah, it was about 4 months before that happened. I'm trying to remember this time frame, but about 4 months, and I was like, oh wow, here I'm going to my manager and going, hey, completely understanding, but I'm also like, all right, I've never had this happen. What's the navigating? And sure, you get the normal things of HR reaching out. I would say most people were like, hey, take whatever time you need. But I didn't know, other than when you sign up for benefits, what kind of things that maybe there is to support you. I didn't know. I think fortunately, people reached out and were very understanding, and were being good humans to actually help in the process or really understand what I may need. I remember it being very hard when I went back finally, because I kind of had to skip. I was supposed to go for training at the beginning. I had to skip that, and so I went to a later one. And I remember our executive, he was one of our top executives in the company, came in, and he was from New York City, and he kind of pulled me aside, and because things are still pretty raw, and there was a lot of people there that didn't know the story, but there were some top people that did, and he just said, he pulled me aside at one point, and he just sat and we talked, and said, Jason, it's amazing. I'm watching you, what you're doing here, and the different things, and I want to check in with you. I know the story, and I know it's not easy to be here, and so it was great that somebody that at his level cared enough to really want to check in. He has kids too. We all have a lot of us have kids, so he understood. And wanted to make sure that I was okay, and I was in a place where I was okay for being able to do my job, and so that mattered. Now it certainly wasn't easy, because long after that, and a good example too, I think right before COVID started, where it kind of went in lockdown, we had a national sales meeting in Dallas, Texas, and he again checked in with me at that. We were having drinks as you do kind of like that night, and he kind of came in the booth and slid in and said, hey, how we doing? I want to just check on you. This is what I've been up to. What have you been doing? You know, and it was like more sincere. It wasn't just like, how you doing? It was
Yeah.
more like, hey,
You believed that he actually
right,
cared, which
right.
he did. Yeah.
Yeah, and so here's a lot of people that wanted his time, and he wanted to make sure he took a good amount of time to sit and
Oh, that's nice.
and such. So
I like, and I've never really heard it that way because I've frequently told people my suggestion is never say I know how you feel, like because
Yeah.
I would never say that to you because I don't know how
Yeah.
you feel, like in your journey in losing Addie in that way. But I know how it feels to lose a child, or I know your story. I like actually I know the story, and just wanted to tell you I was thinking about you as a great way to kind of recognize and then give them the opportunity to, but then him being sincere when he sat down with you both times, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I try to suggest to people a lot is just sit in it. A friend, and I've said this on the podcast a few times, said that someone, and I love this one, is someone said, hey, I got my laptop and my phone. I'm out at your curb. I'm going to be here for 2 hours. If you want me to mow the lawn, do the dishes, you want to go for a walk,
Right.
fine. If not, don't worry about me. Just know I'm here, and and I'm thinking about you.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we can all work remotely. We all, like we
Yeah.
can do something for a little, a small amount of time, but just to let them know that you're thinking of them. And shoot, they might not even be home. That's okay. Like that
Yeah.
message is still pretty awesome. I tell people, I'm like, take food, and if they don't want it, don't be offended.
Yeah.
Because they still remember that you brought that over, that you did that. There were certain people that did little things for us.
Well,
that
and I think
really
it's
resonated.
in a work, a corporate environment. I mean, with him and others taking their time to really support me and really care to want to support me, it made me want to make sure that I was going when things were the extra mile.
Yeah.
When I could, and because not that you didn't want to let them down, but you also were like, oh, okay, well, they took the time for me.
Yeah.
And they didn't have to. They could have just said that it's business and professional.
Yeah.
But you also felt more of like, okay, because they had the resources for me. They
Yeah.
checked in with, they cared about me, that I wanted to go the extra mile and made sure that I was being a good employee going forward and working hard. So I think in the long run, it's you get people to hear that and know that, and they go, oh, I want to be in that environment and work for those people and such.
It's a nice, you feel like they care, right?
Right.
I mean, ultimately a friend just lost her husband a few weeks ago, and she said that he was a organ donor.
Yeah.
And she's on her way, like she still hadn't got home from where she was at. It was like a 2-hour drive. She was on her way home, and they were calling her asking for the donation of the organs. Now she was already aware that he had passed.
Yeah.
And she's like, yes, he would want you to have it. Can I talk about this later? And I get it. I mean, she said the same thing. I get it. It's organ donation.
Right.
But imagine like being that HR person that has to be like,
Yeah, not easy.
so I got him, and I tell people, I'm like, hey, you have to set it up, the process, right? To say, okay, at this time, we're going to give you a call. We're going to give you an email to check in with you.
Yeah.
Here's the wording. So, like that it's coming.
Yeah.
And then if there's a separate opportunity to check in, like from the head of the company like that, or HR, or even your manager or whoever, coworkers, let them check in. It's just a matter of, they still have to, for the business purposes, they're still like, are you gone for 2 weeks? Are you gone for 2 months? Or,
Right.
you know what I mean? Do you need to step away and we need to get you temporary coverage? And those are hard conversations to have because you don't want to come across cold-hearted. At
Right.
the same time, it's like, hey, we're planning on covering for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Just let us know how you'd like us to proceed post 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
And so I tell people that, but it's, I don't know that, again, there's never the perfect way to go about it, right? Because everybody responds differently.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's one of those conversations that you maybe kind of have up front, but people, it's like anything. It's never going to happen to me.
Right.
And are you really paying attention?
Yeah.
That's a different story. So, because, you may think, that's never going to happen to me.
I talk about it quite a bit, Jason, that I feel very fortunate, as hard as it's been, to have had 18 years with Elena. Like
Yeah.
where I look at it and go like, man, we were lucky
Yeah.
because Addie was 6, sadly.
Yeah.
And she lived big. Like, I mean,
yeah.
I loved the whole philosophy of Live Rad, which was you guys' bands and everything. Hannah's bracelet just broke when we were in Europe, by the way. And she was like, it broke and she lost it. She's like, where'd my band go? I go, it had to have broken. You've had it for
Yeah.
6 years.
Yeah, we have people that do that with Addies that are like, oh, can I get it? Do you have any more of those? Because it broke, fine, or whatever. So, and you know, you may have that. I mean, I've felt good, and this is fortunate again that, you know, the digital age too kind of helps remind you of like with pictures. I never walked away. Meg and I didn't walk away going, oh, wow, if we had only done this with her. You know, there's a lot of pictures where we went back because, you know, we have 2 older kids that were like, oh, we did this and we went there. And so, you know, there wasn't any terrible remorse that we're like, oh,
We should have.
we should have done it. Because we did some in that short 6, almost 7 years, some amazing things with her.
Yeah.
And part of those things, she was just drug along because she
Yeah.
had 2 older brother and a sister. And so that happened. But, you know, I think it's been the harder piece. And I don't know if you see this or ever had this. For me, personally, it's been harder. And I know, Megan, your image of your child is frozen.
Yeah.
It's frozen in that time. And now Addie would have just turned 13. And I have this image of her at 6, almost 7. And her friends are 13. How much of a change that is.
Yeah.
So it gives you some comfort of like, oh, look at her friends and
Yeah.
watching, but it also gives you like, whew,
A little bit of sadness.
sadness
Yeah.
of like,
Yeah.
what would Addie be doing now? What would Hannah be doing,
Yeah, or Elena, yeah.
Elena doing now?
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that because I talk about it in the book of the Illsleys had their first there. So there was 7 girls, 6 Illsley girls, and then Elena that they called them all the Fresens. And you know, our joke back when we were all sitting around was, okay, which one's going to end up pregnant a little early and which one might end up being a lesbian? Like like world's worst problems, right?
Yeah.
And then you look at it now and go like, oh my gosh, like, does any of that really matter? Like if one ended up pregnant or deciding alternative lifestyle, that's nothing, right?
Right.
And that's who they are and who they become. And so when Julia walked down the aisle not October, but the October before, I believe, I was a mess. And it was one of those like that, her graduation, going to her friends' graduations, that would have been her graduation as well, like going and seeing them walk the stage.
Right.
It's very emotional for me.
Yeah.
And I look at it and I go, like, even when I see him, I'm like, you have nothing to be this is just me processing. Like, you know, you've done nothing wrong. Just, you know, I'm a mess. Haha. Like, and we joke around about it because I don't get to see that, right? We don't get to see her walk down the aisle.
Right.
We don't get to see these things that were milestones that we would have, you know, assumed,
Right.
You know, like, cause that's the way life is in that way. What, yeah, I mean, it's one of the things that I look back at. We didn't talk to one of the girls that was with Elena that night for a long time. And I wonder for you too, is, the guilt for some of the survivors at Borderline, just the thought of them, like, how did they, and even for me, it was like, gosh, how could you have seen that? How could you have witnessed that and still get through every day? You know, how's it been with your family? Like, you have a big, loving, supporting group of everybody, which I think is strong.
Yeah.
And how have they been in the process? I know some of the boys were attempting resuscitation, like they were helping.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's that's a good piece and a good to do for me.
Yeah.
I can't say that I know you had Anthony, I think, even on. I don't think that I've actually, you know, I haven't actually really sat down with them
Yeah.
to go, hey. I mean, I've certainly said, hey, I know you did everything. I'm sorry you had to do that. But I haven't really revisited with them.
Yeah.
And I think it's partly
I don't mean for you to revisit. I mean,
but I think for me, I haven't revisited. It was maybe on, in a different way for you, we had kind of, that came out of it was a wrongful death lawsuit out of it. And for me, it was a lot for a lot of the people, including Megan, including kids, including cousins. And I had to be that like piece of, oh, I'm working with a lawyer, I'm working,
Yeah.
and, I'm seeing everything. I'm having that, but I'm also, over here going, okay, I want to protect them and protect how they're feeling. And so there was a definite piece of, like I've told Megan, like how hard it was for me because I had to like compartmentalize things that I didn't want to have to compartmentalize, but it
Right.
was really compartmentalizing to, get myself through it, but
Yeah.
also worried for them and not
Individually,
having
yeah.
to have them, in this be traumatized further, so
Reopen those wounds.
wounds.
Yeah.
And so I don't know that sense, and that's probably, going on close to 5 years that I've really revisited that with them.
Yeah.
Maybe out of,
And
not,
I, and
not,
I,
I'm not a therapist, so I didn't want to
yeah.
be like opening things and not know how to like, if they were
I
ready
just
for
always,
it.
and I didn't mean it in that way, is more of, I just always, like, we didn't talk to Alicia for a long time.
Yeah.
Like, we did, but it was always like, hi, how are you today? But I didn't want to know if Elena had been standing next to her. Because I didn't know that I could handle it. Does that
Yeah.
make sense? And so thinking for her, like, man, how do you get through knowing you were there and witnessed this, right?
Right.
And I come to find out later, Elena had left, like to go to the restroom or something, that they were not together when it happened, but it was still happening all around them, right? Now,
Yeah.
this is a mass shooting. It's different than, you know what I mean? Because it was chaos everywhere.
Yeah.
And then even some of them had survived Route 91 and then ended up there and then didn't survive or survived again. And you look at it and go like, what in the world is happening, right? And so for me, I think it's that, how does the survivors, on how that must be for them to process, and the
Right.
pain and the difficulty that must be. We had a court case too, got all the way to the state Supreme Court when it finally got denied to be seen by the state Supreme Court because of Adam, my brother's wife, in television, and my brother as well, that it was on social media before we were informed officially. And then so it went all over. It was Housley versus I think it was Housley versus the LA Times, and it went all the way up because they were putting things out there, and they were trying to say we have freedom of the press, and we were saying, well, we should have right to privacy,
Right.
like as well, like except, once everything was announced, it was put out everywhere, like so people know more about Elena's murder than I do,
Yeah.
and that was our choice to try to say, hey, wait a second, like we want to make this private. Currently, I'm dealing with the same thing is as I go back down to do some speaking events and everything else, I'm trying to be respectful of all the parties and say
Yeah.
like, hey, are you guys comfortable with me doing a book signing or a speaking engagement in the area? And if not, I'm trying to,
Yeah. I mean, I didn't even really
manage
think
that.
about it, but I'm sure that's, I mean,
because the other families, yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And, they're dealing their process differently than maybe you dealing with your process. And so, yeah.
Well, and some of them are still like, I mean, we've, again, even of the 12 families that, 13 died that day, but 12 victims and, 11 victims. And then the officer, Sergeant Helis, who I speak to his wife, Karen, all the time. She's awesome. And, we communicate, off
Yeah.
and on, and we're the one family that's not close. Like everything was in Thousand Oaks, so most of the families lived very close to there.
Okay.
So there was a lot of events going on. We never really made most of those. The Thousand Oaks community was very embracing of all of us. We had Thousand Oaks, Pepperdine, and then Napa. Like so, we had kind of three communities
Yeah.
that were just outpouring of things. I remember Denise Horn saying, she's like, there's a point where it's like, okay, another statue, another path, another monument, another
Right.
something. It was so nice, but there's a point of, okay, and you have to find that balance, and it's hard because everybody's trying to also show their respect, but be respectful.
Right.
But sometimes as the families, they're like, got it, I'm good.
Yeah, and yours, we have it on more of a smaller scale. I wouldn't say smaller, but more localized scale than yours, being because it had national attention and where it was and because of what it was. But I think I see different things, even with Megan and I, and how we process it. And Megan, will a lot of times do different things, kind of in memory of Addie, and sometimes I'm like, whew, not that it's not that I want to move on or I want to forget about her, and we all like take our time of things. It's just for me, I think I kind of go, oh, I don't want to continue to burden folks. But other people have kind of said to me, Jason,
Yeah.
you're not burdening anybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't feel that way, about it. If people
Yeah.
are feeling burdened, they'll do their thing,
Yeah.
and that's fine.
They can excuse themselves.
So yeah, excuse themselves or whatever. And so I have to kind of remind myself that, because I'm not a people pleaser per se, but I also sometimes I'm hyper aware of other people more than I need to be.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
in this
Likewise.
situation, I don't know that I always need to be as worried about how they feel.
I struggled at first with both the book and the speaking because I was like, why does anybody care about what makes my story more? And I didn't want people to feel like my story was more important than your story with
Right.
Addie.
Yeah.
And that's not why I do it at all. It was more of the amount of people, specifically men, but people that were coming forward going like, gosh, what you said was really meaningful. Thank you. Now, when it was a friend like yourself, I'd be like, oh, okay, thanks, Jason.
Yeah.
Pat on the back.
Yeah.
You say the things to your friends.
Right,
And whether it's
right.
real or not, you're still saying it because it's the right thing to say.
Right.
And if it's a friend who's bluntly honest, they still say it,
Yeah.
like whatever, and bluntly honest or whatever. But it was the strangers that started coming up, making me go like, gosh, people really don't talk about grief, and men don't talk about grief, and we're fixers by nature, right? We're trying to hold it all together and be strong. And I've learned that allowing the emotion is okay. Like every time on Elena's birthday, we'll do dark chocolate cake and prime rib or like all the things that she would love, but we don't do candles. That's just us, right? Some people celebrate the birthday, right?
Yeah.
And for us, we get together and we celebrate being together, and somebody usually says a nice, thing, prayer or something.
Yep.
And with that, it can get a little emotional, obviously.
Yeah.
But then, we were just so fortunate to be surrounded by so much love. There was one thing that we talked about, and then if we can finish on that, I wanted to ask you is when you get asked about your children, what's your response?
Yeah, that's
Like, how many kids do you have? Like in small talk on your trip to Dallas.
yeah, it's a hard one. I think early on, it was really hard. And I could still remember the first time early on, and it was a work thing. I had to go out to Reno to a customer. And it was a customer that I was starting to develop a good relationship with, and they knew I was off, but they didn't really know why I was off, had been off, and they asked me, like, oh, all right, so it's good to have you back. And then, then I had to go through the story, and it wasn't even exactly the kid story. And that was one of the first times I was like, oh, somebody I don't know is, asking how I've been, but, well, you're gone. Did you just and then I had to say, but there's definitely times where we'll meet people just like you. My kids harass me and my wife that I'll sit next to somebody on the plane and I'll just start a conversation, and I'll kind of feel it, and I'll just start a conversation with anybody. But that inevitably leads to questions like, oh, great, where are you from? And, oh, you have any kids? And those are the ones who just kind of go, whew. All right. And there's definitely times where I just say, oh, I have 2 kids. Yeah. Because I don't want to, I don't want to burden them. And it actually just happened again the other day with somebody I didn't really know. And then, I don't know, I feel it case by case.
Yeah.
To some degree, like, hey, I'll just say, yeah, I have 3 kids, but one of them passed away in an accident some years back. But I have 2 older kids, and they're like, oh, and you should just say, oh gosh, I'm sorry to hear that. And, and it's, I don't mind sharing it, and some will just kind of move on. Some will, oh, do you mind ask if I ask you, and I don't mind if people ask me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm at a point where I'm like, okay, it's okay.
Yeah. Well, and there's times where I'll say, do you mind if I ask somebody that, could you mind if you, and then sometimes it'll be like, yeah, I'd rather not talk about it. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like I just, and usually I tell people a lot that I'm like, look, I get a lot of leeway because if I turn to somebody and say like, how are you doing today?
Yeah.
And they know my story, they're like, phew. But if you turn to them and they don't know your story and you're like, how you doing today? And they're like, how the fuck do you think I'm doing?
Right.
Right. Because they're immediately thinking like, what do you think I'm doing? I lost my child. Right. But if they know you lost yours too, and you say, how are you doing today? They're like, well, you know how it feels, right? You just get a totally different reaction.
Right.
And so for me, I take it case by case as well. And it's one of those, if I'm on an elevator and we're getting off in a couple of floors,
Right.
probably going to say my son's 21. He goes to school in England.
Right.
Like we were just over there. The taxi driver asked, we were actually in a fairly long taxi. The language barrier was enough that I was
Right.
just like, no, we're here to see our son. He's graduating from college. But most of the time, if we're at a table, we were at a fundraiser, and a woman, I won't say who, super nice, but she turns and she says, oh, blah, 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 small talk with Hannah. And she says, do you have any children? And she's like, yeah, we have, our son is, whatever, 18 at the time. And she says, do you have any other children? And Hannah says, well, we lost our daughter a few years ago. And she goes, oh my God, she wasn't the one that was in the mass shooting, was it? And Hannah goes, well, yes,
Right.
And again, no intention for her to be mean about it. She
Right.
was just like so caught by surprise
Yeah.
by it. And so frequently Hannah she typically will just say, we have, our son is 21 and we lost our daughter a few years ago. And I usually, if it does allow, I say, well, our son's 21, but we lost our daughter in a mass shooting in 2018, because I want people to I want them to see like, this is real. Like this
Right.
stuff is real. And
Well,
so,
there's
but
a
it depends.
there's a piece there too.
I'm not going
for
to say
you.
that in an elevator when it's
Right.
like, oh my gosh, bye, ding, and the elevator opens.
Yeah. And I think a little bit of difference at the end. Obviously, they both pass, but like yours has a little bit of a different, right? That you
It's more, for me, it's a little bit of shock and awe.
right, or there's some things to talk about that as
Right.
a public type thing, right?
Right. There's a political message that someday
Right.
it needs to be. And then I think as long as it humanizes for people, that they start to go like, man, I met somebody who lost their child in this, and I can't, we need to do something about it. Right.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, it's one of those, it's case by case for us too. And I kind of also depend on if I'm in the mood for,
Yeah.
like if I'm tired, if it's the end of the day, if it's somebody I'm sitting next to and I'm probably going to be next to them. Alex always laughs. He goes, how do you meet so many people? I go, because I look up from my phone and say, hi, where are you from?
Right.
We just start BSing. And, that's how I've met some amazing people in my
Right.
life that are now very good friends that I would have never met
Yeah.
if I hadn't done it. So,
Yeah, I sat next to. It was funny. We went to Europe over the summer, and just the way the seating was, I sat next to this one lady, and everybody was like three, and then behind, and I became friendly, and they were like sending pictures, like little selfies when we were on the plane because we had Wi-Fi of like everybody sitting who they're sitting. And so I took like, oh, we gotta take a picture, and I sent around, oh, this is my new best friend, and this is what she's doing when she goes here. It's kind of joke because you just become friendly with people,
Yeah.
but I think that the kind of end too, that nice part of like being friendly with people, and you sometimes kind of get a little bit, oh, my story is like a big story here. We're talking about it on your podcast here, but it also reminds you that every human being has something.
Yeah,
right.
we all have a story.
Everybody's walking around. You got to remember sometimes that it's not just me. It's not just you. Everybody's walking around. They have a parent that's sick with cancer. They have lost somebody. They, go on and on. They lost their job. People are human. They're going through things.
Yeah.
So I try to at least tell myself like, hey, however crappy my story was, and people tell you all the time, oh my gosh, there's nothing like, I can never understand losing a child. No, but we all have things.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of remind yourself of that and
Yeah.
kind of go, hey, I want to be that I understand, want to listen to you too.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to kind of get like, oh, yeah, It's not great, but
Get in our own
everybody's
world.
got something.
Well, our technology has taught us to get in our own world and be a little selfish in our
Right.
messaging, right? So it really, you're spot on in saying that. So, Jason, thank you for
Yeah,
joining me.
thanks for having me.
Another episode of Lessons in Loss, Love, and Resilience. And we'll have to catch up again soon. Maybe there's an episode 2 down the road.
Yeah, maybe. This
we
was
get
fun.
we get the boys on here and get them.
We could. We should do that. Yeah, our sons, right?
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.